The morning I found out, I was sitting in my car in the hospital parking garage, still in my scrubs, too tired to drive home. I opened my banking app the way I always did after a long shift, just a habit, checking that my direct deposit had cleared. I had done it 100 times. Maybe 1,000. The number on the screen didn't make sense. I stared at it. Blinked. Pulled the phone closer like the distance between my face and the screen was the problem. $214.37. My savings account. The one I had been putting money into every single month for 6 years. The one that was supposed to be $112,000, $214.37. I remember the exact sound the parking garage made in that moment. A car 2 floors up, tires squealing on the turn, someone laughing far away. The hum of the fluorescent lights. Everything completely normal, while my entire world was sitting at $214.37. I called the bank before I even processed what I was feeling. My hands were moving before my brain caught up. The representative read me the transaction history. 11 withdrawals, all of them in the past 6 weeks. All of them authorized by the secondary account holder, my sister. I need to explain something first, because when I tell people this story, the first thing they ask is why my sister was on my savings account at all. It's a fair question. Looking back, I asked myself the same thing. Her name is Felicity. She's 4 years older than me, which made her 34 when all of this happened. We were close growing up. Genuinely close. The kind of sisters who shared clothes and stayed up talking and called each other first when something went wrong. My parents raised us to lean on each other. Family is your foundation, my mom used to say. I believed that completely. When I was 22 and just starting my nursing career, I moved to a new city for a hospital position. I was young, I was nervous, and Felicity offered to be on my account in case of emergencies. Just so someone can help you if something happens, she said. You're going to be alone out there. I thought it was love. I added her without a second thought. For 6 years, she never touched it, not once. So I stopped thinking about it. The account became background noise, something I checked monthly, watched grow, mentally furnished the house I was saving for. I had a down payment ready. I had been pre-approved for a mortgage. I had even found a neighborhood I loved. A quiet street 20 minutes from the hospital with old maple trees and a coffee shop on the corner. I had a life planned, and my sister had been dismantling it for 6 weeks while I worked overnight shifts and came home too exhausted to notice. The bank confirmed everything within 48 hours. 11 transactions. The largest was $34,000. The smallest was $6,200. All transferred to an account in Felicity's name. All done quietly, spread out enough to look almost intentional in their carefulness. I drove to her apartment. I don't remember deciding to do it. I just found myself in her parking lot, hands still on the steering wheel, staring at her second-floor window where the lights were on. I was so calm walking up the stairs. That's the part that surprises me even now. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't crying. I think my body understood that I needed to see her face before I felt anything, because feeling it first would have destroyed me in that parking lot. She opened the door and smiled. Hey, I didn't know you were coming over. 11 withdrawals, I said. $111,786. Her face changed. Not to guilt. Not immediately. Her first reaction, and I will never forget this, was a kind of calculating stillness, like she was deciding how much I knew before deciding what to say. Can you come inside? She said. Tell me why. She pulled the door open wider. I walked in, and that's when I saw the living room. New furniture. Not just new, expensive. A sectional sofa that I recognized from a store I'd walked through once and left immediately because nothing had a price tag visible, and I knew what that meant. A large-screen television mounted on a wall that had been repainted since the last time I'd visited. A kitchen I could see through the archway with appliances still wearing their stickers. Felicity, I said. My voice came out very quiet. What did you do? That's when she started talking. The story came out in pieces, and it changed shape at least twice before she landed on the version she seemed to decide to commit to. Version 1. It was a loan. She was going to pay it back. She'd hit a rough patch financially and panicked and just needed to borrow it temporarily, and she had every intention of returning every dollar. I asked her when she had planned to tell me. She didn't answer that. Version 2. She needed it more than I did. She had real responsibilities. Her apartment, her car payment, her lifestyle. I was a nurse. I made good money. I could rebuild. "You're young," she said. "You have time." I had just turned 28. "That was my down payment," I said. "I was closing on a house in 3 weeks. You can save again." 6 years, Felicity. She looked at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. Something tired and a little cold, like she had already moved past the part where she felt bad about it. "Look, you have a good job. You'll be fine." I needed to get my life together. I couldn't keep living like this. She gestured at the apartment, at the new couch, the new kitchen, the new television. My 6 years of overnight shifts and skipped vacations and packed lunches arranged into a room that wasn't mine. "I needed it more," she said again. I left. I sat in my car. And for the first time since that parking garage, I cried. I cried by parents that night. I don't know what I expected. Some part of me, the part that still believed what my mother said about family being your foundation, thought they would be horrified. I thought my father would be angry. I thought they would say the right things. My mother said, "Oh, honey, Felicity has been really struggling." My father said, "Can you give her some time to pay it back? She's family." I held the phone and listened to them tell me, in careful, measured words, that my sister's lifestyle renovation was more pressing than 6 years of my savings. My father suggested I think about it from her perspective. My mother said maybe I could take on extra shifts to rebuild. "She committed fraud," I said. Silence. "She forged withdrawal documentation," I said, because the bank had confirmed it. Felicity had submitted paperwork that wasn't in my handwriting and wasn't authorized by me. "That's not a loan. That's a crime." "Let's not use that word," my mother said. "Let's not make this into something ugly." I hung up. I want to be clear about the next part because it's the part people always have opinions about. I did not hesitate. I know the story you expect. The one where the protagonist agonizes for weeks, asks friends, journals about it, cries on the phone to her mom, and ultimately decides she has no choice. I have watched enough of those unfold around me, with other people, in other situations, to know exactly how they end. They end with the victim absorbing the loss so the family can stay comfortable. I was not going to do that. I had a colleague at the hospital, someone I'd worked alongside for 4 years, a woman named Dr. Mertz Holt, who I respected deeply and who had gone to law school before switching to medicine. She wasn't practicing law, but she knew people. I called her the morning after my parents' phone call and told her everything. "File a police report today," she said, before I even finished. "Not tomorrow. Today. And don't contact your sister again." I filed it that afternoon. The detective assigned to my case was thorough and, honestly, kinder than I expected. He explained that because Felicity had submitted fraudulent withdrawal documents, forging my authorization on several of the transactions, this wasn't a gray area. It wasn't a civil dispute between family members over a misunderstanding. It was fraud. It was identity theft. The joint account status didn't protect her, because the documentation she had submitted to execute the withdrawals had been falsified. He asked if I wanted to proceed knowing she would likely face criminal charges. I said yes without pausing. He looked up from his notepad. I think he was expecting more from me. Some caveat, "But she's my sister." Some hesitation he would have to talk me through. "Yes," I said again. "I want to proceed." My parents found out I had filed the report through Felicity, who called them panicking the day the detective contacted her. My mother called me 17 times in one afternoon. I watched my phone light up and did not answer. My father left a voicemail that lasted 4 minutes and contained the phrase, "tearing this family apart," twice, and the word "ungrateful" once. I saved the voicemail. "My lawyer, Dr. Twer. Holt's contact. a woman who handled exactly this kind of case, said it might be useful. It was eventually, though, not in the way I expected. My aunt reached out through a cousin asking me to consider the family and think about what this means for all of us. I thought about writing back. I composed a response in my head while I was driving to work. A long, careful explanation of what Felicity had done, what 6 years of saving felt like, what it meant to be 28 and have your foundation pulled out from under you by someone you trusted completely. I deleted it without sending anything. There was nothing I could say to someone whose first concern was the family's comfort, rather than what had actually happened to me. The next few weeks were the strangest of my life. I kept working. I kept showing up to the hospital in the dark hours of the morning, doing my job, taking care of people who were scared and sick and needed me focused. I don't know how I held it together, except that work was the one place where nothing was complicated. There was a patient. There was a need. There was something I could do. So I did it. Outside of work, everything was bureaucratic and exhausting. There were meetings with my lawyer, paperwork from the bank, statements to give, transactions to document. At one point, I sat at my kitchen table at 2 a.m, surrounded by 6 years of bank statements, building a timeline, and I realized I was not angry anymore. I was just certain. There is a difference, and it matters. Anger wants something emotional. An apology, an acknowledgement, a scene. Certainty just wants resolution. I was certain about what had happened, certain about what I was doing, and certain that I was not going to make it easier for anyone who had hurt me to escape what they had done. The civil claim moved faster than the criminal case. Because the bank had documentation of the fraudulent paperwork and because my lawyer was very good, we were able to file a civil suit against Felicity alongside the criminal proceedings. My lawyer explained that civil and criminal cases are separate. One is the state pursuing her for the crime, one is me pursuing her for the money. You can do both, she said. And in your situation, you should. Felicity's attorney, someone my parents apparently helped pay for, sent a letter in the first week suggesting we settle. The number they offered was insultingly low. It was also, my lawyer pointed out, an implicit acknowledgement that Felicity knew she was liable. We did not settle. I found out about the renovation from a different angle than I expected. A cousin. Not the one who had relayed my aunt's message, but a different one. Someone I'd always liked, sent me a message about 3 weeks into the legal proceedings. She had been to Felicity's apartment. She recognized the furniture as expensive. She had also, she told me, seen what looked like a receipt from a contractor on Felicity's counter for a home office renovation. Felicity had used money from my account to renovate a home office. I remember reading that message and sitting very still for a long moment. The down payment I had saved to buy myself a home had paid for a room in my sister's rented apartment that she used to work from. I forwarded it to my lawyer. Here is what I want to say about my parents, because I've thought about it a lot and I think it deserves more than a sentence. They are not evil people. I don't think either of them sat down and decided that my savings didn't matter. What they did, what I think they genuinely did, was decide, without ever saying it out loud, that keeping the family feeling okay was more important than holding my sister accountable. They called it love. They called it not making it ugly. They called it protecting the family. What it actually was choosing her comfort over my justice, and then expecting me to do the same. I don't hate them. I'm not sure I've fully forgiven them either, or that forgiveness is even the right frame for what happened between us. What I know is that something shifted in those weeks. Something structural, something I had built my entire sense of safety on, and it did not shift back. When my mother called a month into the proceedings and said she hoped I knew how much she loved me, I believed her. I also understood, for the first time clearly, that her love had limits I hadn't known about, and that I had to live with that. The criminal case concluded 8 months after I filed the report. Felicity pleaded guilty to 2 counts of fraud and 1 count of identity theft. The plea agreement meant she didn't go to trial. It also meant she received a sentence of probation, mandatory financial restitution, and community service. No prison time. I want to be honest, I had wanted more. I had sat in that detective's office and said yes without hesitating, and I had spent 8 months being certain. And when the plea agreement came through, I felt something complicated that I am still not entirely sure what to call. Relief, maybe. Frustration underneath it. The restitution order was real, legally enforceable, and my lawyer assured me it had teeth. But there was a moment, sitting in the parking lot of my lawyer's office after, where I thought about the new couch in Felicity's living room and the home office renovation, and my mother saying she's really been struggling. And I felt the distance between what I had lost and what the system had decided to do about it. And it was not a comfortable feeling. What I can tell you is this. The restitution began. Payments came in, court-ordered, documented. My lawyer tracked every one. It would take years at the rate ordered, but they came. The civil case settled 6 months after the criminal plea for an amount that, combined with the restitution schedule, covered the vast majority of what had been taken. I am still renting. I did not buy the house with the maple trees. That window closed, and the market moved, and the neighborhood I had loved priced me out by the time I had savings again. I found a different place. Smaller. A different street. No coffee shop on the corner. And I'm still working toward the next down payment. That part doesn't have a clean ending. I still work at the same hospital. I still drive to the parking garage before dawn sometimes, and occasionally I open my banking app the way I always have, and I see a number that has started, slowly, to grow again. I removed Felicity from the account the day after I filed the police report. I have not added anyone since, and I don't plan to. If there's one thing I could say to anyone reading this, anyone who has a family member on an account, anyone who added someone during a soft moment of trust and forgot to revisit it, it is this. That access is not love. It is access. Love does not require it, and the people who would use it the way my sister did will always have a reason that sounds like love when they ask. My parents and I speak occasionally. Short calls, careful ones. I don't think what we have now is what we had before, and I've stopped pretending it will go back. There's a version of this story where I find a way to rebuild with them the same way I'm rebuilding my savings. Slowly, carefully, without letting anyone become a secondary account holder again. Maybe that version is where I'm headed. I don't know yet. What I know is that I am 29 years old. I have $38,000 in an account that has exactly one name on it. I go to work, I take care of people, I come home to an apartment that is mine. And I am, despite everything, despite the parking garage and the phone call and the couch I paid for that I never sat on, I am okay. More than okay, actually. I'm certain. I've thought a lot about what actually made all of this happen. Not the legal part, the human part. The part where a person looks at someone who loves them and decides that love is a resource to extract rather than something to protect. Felicity didn't steal from a stranger. She stole from someone who trusted her so completely that the thought of removing her from that account never once crossed my mind in 6 years. That trust wasn't naivety exactly. It was the natural result of being raised to believe that family is where you are safest. And that belief, unchallenged, becomes its own kind of vulnerability. What I've come to understand is that what happened between us wasn't random. It was the end of a long chain of small choices she made. Choices to see my stability as something available to her, to read my generosity as permission, to interpret my silence as endorsement. Every time I picked up extra shifts and didn't complain, every time I said, "I'm fine," when the family asked. Every time I absorbed a small inconvenience without saying anything, she was learning something about me. She was learning that I would manage, that I always managed, and so she let herself stop worrying about what her choices would cost me. That's not evil in the dramatic sense. It's something quieter and more ordinary. It's what happens when someone lets convenience replace conscience for long enough that the line between the two disappears. And my parents. I don't think they ever sat down and decided my savings didn't matter. I think they were afraid. Afraid of conflict. Afraid of watching their older daughter face consequences. Afraid of what it would feel like to hold her accountable for something real. Fear dressed up as love is still fear. It makes the same decisions. Fear always makes. Protect the immediate comfort. Defer the harder thing. Ask the person who is already managing to keep managing. What I refused to do was make it easier for any of them. Not because I wanted revenge. I want to be careful about that word. Because I don't think what I felt was revenge. I felt certainty. I knew what had been done to me. I knew it was wrong. And I understood, with a clarity that surprised me, that absorbing the loss and moving on would not preserve my family. It would just tell everyone involved, including myself, that what happened was acceptable. That my 6 years of work had a price, and the price was keeping the peace. I wasn't willing to pay it. The thing about standing your ground when people you love are asking you not to, is that it teaches you something about yourself that comfort never could. I learned that I could be the person no one was comfortable with, and still be okay. I learned that I could file a report, hire a lawyer, sit in a detective's office and say yes, and come out the other side still knowing who I was. That's not a small thing. I think it might be the most important thing. Integrity isn't what you hold on to when it's easy. It's what you hold on to when your mother is calling 17 times and your father is leaving voicemails about tearing the family apart, and every instinct you were raised with is telling you to soften, to accommodate, to find a way to make everyone less uncomfortable at your own expense. I held on. My savings account has one name on it now. It always will. And every dollar I put into it from here is mine. Completely, legally, unambiguously mine, in a way that feels different than it did before. Not just financially. Something deeper than that. I earned that feeling. Every bit of it.